Hi, everybody. Oh, God, am I shouting? I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to talk about Russia, but not the whole like hacking, email, all that stuff. I want to talk about 3 trips I took across Russia in 1995, 2005, and 2015, and how technology changed over that time, and how it affected what I was doing and what I found out about people. So I want to give you a little bit of background. I'm going to start with me in 1976. This is me, 9 years old, very confused. And the reason why I was confused was because my mother decided she wanted to go to the Soviet Union, and this was in the middle of the Cold War, and my father was in the military. And so the one thing that I understood was that the Russians were the bad guys, they were the enemies, my dad was fighting them. And then my mom wanted to go have a vacation there, and so this led to a lot of confusion in my 9-year-old brain. I wasn't really sure what that was all about. I'm including this picture mainly because I think my mom looks really fabulous in that outfit in Red Square, 1976, yes, thank you. So I ended up studying Russian in college, and I got my first job out of college working at the US Embassy in Moscow as a nanny. That's my official служебная карточка. It's my little card, ID card for the embassy. And I lived and worked there, and obviously 1988, 89, there was not really any great way to communicate with people from the Soviet Union to the US except for ye olde Soviet telephone, or ye olde Soviet long-distance phone booths. And the way those worked is you would go to a place, there was like the telephone and telegraph building, and you would give them the number that you wanted to call and then the country code, and then you'd wait and wait and wait and wait, and then when they placed the call, this little light would go in this booth and you'd go running over and then you would have your call. And so it was very difficult to remain in touch with anybody that I had gotten to know when I was there. So I went back to the States. I was living in Washington, D.C. for a while, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back and live in Russia again after the Soviet Union fell. And so in 1994, I took this fine piece of equipment here, the AST486SX33 laptop with, you can see that tiny, teeny, tiny little mouse thing there. That was the worst thing ever, and those little clickies. But this was my way. This is the plug with the helpful little orange sticker that says up, so you don't put it in the wrong way, so that I could actually connect to the Russian telephone system through the magic of GlassNet, which is a play on, yes, on Glassnest. And this was in the 1990s. This was a non-profit internet system. I found this, I can't believe I actually found this image. It's absolutely unbelievable. But this was the state of the art, how you would connect to the internet. Now, just as an aside, when I was living in Washington in the early 90s, I had met this girl that I kind of liked, and I was getting ready to move to Russia, and she was like, oh, well, great, well, so, have fun. I guess I'll see you in, 3 years or whatever when you come back. And I said, no, there's this thing called email, and, we could email each other. And there was this, small company called America Online that had just started up, in the DC suburbs, and I was like, I said, oh, you should sign up, you should get an AOL address, and, then we can email. And she was like, oh, that's cool. I said, okay, Kara, so you do that. Kara Swisher, no joke. This is how Kara Swisher first used email. And we arranged a vacation together to Kazakhstan. I want you all to note, Kara looks no different. 22 years later, I look like a refugee from a flock of seagulls. But so anyway, you're welcome, Silicon Valley. This is how Kara Swisher started on email. Anyway, so I'm living in Russia, and I find this email from this guy named Gary Matoso. He's a photographer, and he has this grand notion that he wants to go across Russia and do this photo essay, starting in Vladivostok, which is the far, far, far Russian southeast, and coming all the way across on the Trans-Siberian. And he needs somebody who speaks Russian to go with him. So I'm like, great, this sounds fabulous. And he says, oh, by the way, we're going to do a real-time web travelogue as we go. This is 1995. This is an insane thing to say. Like, how could you possibly do that? First of all, I couldn't understand how a photographer of his caliber was going to, what was he going to do? Like, take his film to the Russian equivalent of Walgreens and then bring along, I had no idea how he was going to do this. And then he showed me this prototype digital camera. That thing is so huge. It is like, it was just enormous, and it was so heavy. And it was a regular Nikon camera with this thing attached to it, and there was no screen or anything, so we couldn't see. But he would pull this thing out, and the Russians would be like, oh my God, like, is this a weapon? Like, what are you? And it took photographs that were about 1.5 megabytes, but in order to actually upload them over the Russian phone lines as we traveled across Siberia, he would shrink the photographs down to 25 kilobytes each. Oh, it gets better. So he would take a bunch of photographs and then he would choose the ones that he wanted to put up on the website and he would shrink them down to 25 kilobytes each. And then we would send them in like one after the other. And like, I remember one night we sent 8 photos, so what is that? It's like 200 kilobytes. It took 8 hours. It took 8 hours. And we would start sending it, and then it'd be like, oh God, it's been 6 hours, I'm so tired, we gotta go to sleep. And it'd be like, okay, like you sleep and I'll be here in case it cuts off because we gotta start it again. And it was a total nightmare. But we succeeded in creating the Russian Chronicles website. Look at that, that's Gary there with his giant camera, and there's me. And that was the route that we took across Russia. And this is actually still online, by the way. So if you Google my name and the Russian Chronicles, you will find this website. And I just want to point out, you can see the red circle there. This site is best viewed using Netscape 1.1n or later, which hopefully you all have by now at this point. So feel free to check it out if you have a halfway decent browser. So we did this whole trip across Russia. I'm going to show you some of the amazing people that we met. This guy is Vasily. He takes care of this lighthouse that was in Vladivostok, literally at the edge of the earth. You just felt like you were in the middle of nowhere. It's about 40 miles from North Korea. This is his wife, Valentina, calling in the weather, as they still did at that point, 1995. This is just 4 years out from the Soviet Union. Boris Kaufman, member of the Jewish community of Birobidzhan. This was set up as a quote-unquote Jewish homeland by Joseph Stalin in the late 20s and early 30s. Oleg and Sveta, married couple in Ulan-Ude. This is one of my favorite bits. We wanted to meet a Buryat farmer. Buryatia is an ethnic enclave within Russia, and we thought it'd be really cool to meet a farmer. And so we had met this poet in Ulan-Ude, and she said, here, take this letter, get on this bus, and go out. And the letter was handwritten in Buryat, which is a language I have no idea. I don't know it at all. And so we took this bus like 3 hours out into the countryside and found this woman and gave her the letter, and she read it, and she was like, are you really Americans? And we said, yeah, and she said, you're the first foreigners I've ever met, except for Mongolians, and they don't count. True story. So she introduced us to this gentleman, Buyanto, and this is his wife, Tsipelma, and their family, and we got to spend time with them. Got to go out on Lake Baikal with the research scientists who study the lake. And this is a great story. This woman, Natasha, in Novosibirsk, said to me, well, I guess you can interview me, but who are you writing for? And I said, well, explaining in Russian, there's this thing called the internet, and you plug your computer into a box called a modem, and then you plug it into your phone line. And she said, stop. Russians will never figure that out. You go ahead and write what you want. 2 sisters, Anya and Masha. Keep an eye on these 2. They come back later on while everybody comes back. This gentleman in the middle was a communist in Chelyabinsk. He got very angry with me when I wouldn't just say what magazine I worked for. He just insisted the internet was something I had made up just to screw with them. And Moscow rapper MC Pavlov. This guy was the bomb. So this was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I thought, oh my God, I'll never do anything this cool again. This was so amazing. That was the route we took. So of course, 9 years go by, and then I called Gary up and I said, we should go back and do this whole trip again. That was so amazing. And Gary couldn't do it, so I got this other photographer, this guy named David Hilligus, and here's my new state-of-the-art Sony Veo, which I'm not gonna lie, I got it partly because it was like, it looked cool. And I got an RBGAN satellite internet communicator, so that on this trip, and also they gave me a satellite phone too. They were sponsors of the trip, so that we literally could connect to the internet in theory from anywhere. It was kind of tricky, but so we did this for the Washington Post. We went back all the way across Russia. We found all of the same people. One guy we couldn't find. I think he might have. He was an older gentleman. I think he might have died. But here's the lighthouse keeper and his wife. Boris in Birobidzhan was still there. Oleg and Sveta, Buyanto the farmer. Here's me with my RBGAN and a bunch of cows in Buryatia. Research scientists on Lake Baikal. We were able to go out again on an expedition on the lake. Here I am with my RBGAN on Lake Baikal. I did actually manage to upload a photograph, which felt so amazing, and then it took me like a half an hour to figure it out, and then I was like, all right, I did it once, I'm good. Masha and Anya, remember them? Little girls, not little girls anymore. And there's MC Pavlov. So still making music. So of course I decided 10 years more go by and I'm like, all right, I have to do this again because this was so awesome, right? So I decide I'm not going to take a photographer this time because it's a pain in the butt and they never speak Russian and I have to translate, so forget it. I'm just going to go by myself. So this was the original gear for the trip. There's a couple of power books, and you can see mine has that little tiny stupid trackball, and then Gary's had one of the very early touchpads. And I remember saying to him, this is never going to take off. That's such an idiotic little thing. Like, who wants to do the touchpad? And he would get so nervous when it wasn't uploading right, and his hands would start to sweat, and he'd be like, I can't get it. So all this crap that we had, which of course we had to double up on everything because if something breaks in the middle of Siberia in 1995, you can't pop down to the Apple store to buy whatever it is you need. So we had all this junk that we carried. This is ridiculous. Like, I should have taken a proper 2005 gear photo, but I didn't. But anyway, there's all the mess of stuff that we took. And then this was the most recent trip. And this is also kind of hilarious because really I could have made do with just the laptop, the phone, and then the extra charger. Like a bunch of that stuff. That red thing is a wallet. I have my tampon case in there. It's not even, you can't, like, whatever. I just was like, oh, here's all this stuff in my backpack. I'll take a picture. So at any rate, so Vasily and Valentina, right? That's them now. Oleg and Sveta. Here's the farmer, and he and his wife posed with the 1995 and 2005. Back out on Lake Baikal, this woman was the original woman, the one in the sunglasses. And then Natasha, remember Natasha, who was like, Russians will never figure that out? She lives in Prague now, and so we were Skyping with each other. And here I am FaceTiming. This woman is my wife. And there I am in Novosibirsk with my friends, and we were FaceTiming, and I thought, this is just bonkers that I can do this. Like, this is crazy. I mean, the first trip, it was just impossible to communicate with anybody. Nobody had heard of the internet. And now here she is driving down, well, she pulled over, it's okay, Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, and then, here I am in a kitchen in Novosibirsk, just chatting with her. Here's the sisters now, MC Pavlov, still around. And then, so this is the trip. And very quickly, because I'm already over my time, I just wanted to say the 3 takeaways for me that I'd just like to say is, number 1, it's so useful to me to remember, like, what is technology for? Why are we doing all this? Why do we care about technology? And one of the things that was so great about the evolution of the technology on all these 3 trips is being able now to be in touch with all of these people. I'm Facebook friends with most of them. We email. It's very easy to be close with people. It's very easy to communicate. The second thing I'd like you to take away is this. That's Kara. Again, we're ice skating in Kazakhstan, and that's kind of fun. And then the third thing is, the book is called Bears in the Streets. Madeleine Albright liked it. I hope you all will check it out. Thank you so much for having me here.